Welcome to Y11 Audio. This is Ypsilanti's college football podcast. My name is Alex Alvarado. Thank you for listening. This podcast is part of my EMU football-sided newsletter, Ypsi11.com. So if you haven't checked that out, if you haven't subscribed to that, signed up for updates, now's a good time to do that. And if you're a returning listener to this podcast, thank you for subscribing to this. If you're new here, thanks for trying something new. Hopefully you like us. Now's a good time to subscribe to the show too and leave a 5-star review. Both of those are free. It's game week. Eastern Michigan is opening up its college football season against the Eastern Kentucky Colonels. A pretty respected FCS team, one that isn't in like FCS top 25s, but is still a respected program in those ranks. It's one of those programs that now that, if you recall in the fall, the MAC could have and didn't ultimately grab Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee State, which would have been a great rivalry to bring over to the MAC, but would have done a whole bunch of other, changes in general. Now that the MAC may or may not be looking for schools to add, it'll always leave that door open to, if you're good enough, sure, we'll let you in. Is that door open to Eastern Kentucky? It could be. Eastern Kentucky is one of those programs that, at least on the football side, I don't know too much about it as a whole. It's one of those programs that fits the bill of what could be a school that fits the MAC identity. It's in the blueprint. It's not too far outside of the realm of getting around. It's somewhat local. It does play, MAC schools. Of course, it's got Eastern on the schedule, and next week they're going to be at Bowling Green too. So they do have 2 MAC teams coming up. They do generally play, like I said, in the Midwest. They recruit against these MAC teams on the recruiting trail. So, yes, we're going to see them once a year on the football field, but many days out of the year, they're fighting in private against these MAC schools for athletes to put on the field. Can those athletes take down Eastern? Can Eastern finally, and yes, I'm saying this correctly, finally get a win over Eastern Kentucky? We shall see. But it's game week. I'm excited for it. You should be excited for it because it's just generally football, man. If you watched anything last week, it was probably the crap of Nebraska, Northwestern, and Dublin, Ireland, and that wasn't fun. Actually, it was fun. It was fun, but it wasn't because I'd rather be on the home soil. And yes, there were other games going on, but it wasn't an overload of games from every county in America, any university in America with a football field. It wasn't just filled with, potential and fun and beer cans on the ground. There wasn't that all across America. It was just a handful of games, 2 handfuls of games. One of them shouldn't have been played, but here we are. And now everybody else gets to open with week 1. Eastern's is Friday. It's going to be on ESPN 3 if you can't make it to Ypsilanti at Rynearson Stadium. 7 o'clock kick, ESPN 3. It'll be fun. It usually is. And, Rynearson's a great place to hang out. And I'm sorry, I always say Rynearson. I know it's Rynearson, but I'm sorry. I just say Rynearson because I'm basic. I said it wrong as a freshman, and I just haven't stopped. I'm really sorry about that. You know what? And this is coming from someone who, when a friend gets married and, that friend, she, takes up a new last name, I don't recognize it. And it's not out of disrespect. It really isn't. It's just because I've known you so long as this one name that I just cannot correct myself. I will not correct myself. I'm sorry. It's not a matter of disrespect. It's just I really like the person I met from the start. And at the start, I met Rynearson Stadium. That was the word that it was said to me the first time, and that's the way it'll stick. I'm so sorry about that. But still, the weather is going to be great. I just checked the weather. Today's not going to be amazing, today being Monday. But Friday being Friday, things will clear up. Be in the 80s. It'll cool off at night. It'll be pretty humid. It's, late August, early September in Michigan. But as long as the weather's still good, who cares? It'll be a fun time. But I'd like to hear about your fun times. If you want to reach out to the podcast at all, there's 3 ways of going about it. You can do voicemail. You can tweet at me at Ypsi11. Email me at Ypsi11@gmail.com. But the voicemail phone number, 734-273-9224. If you have any predictions about upcoming games, about the schedule, about, the season as a whole, about the MAC, about Eastern Michigan football, about Eastern Michigan other sports, about Eastern Michigan administratively, non-sports, or you just have reactions about literally anything you want to see, about what you just saw, about what you heard. Holy crap, that was a great game winner. Holy crap, that was a huge loss that we shouldn't have had. Holy crap, I cannot believe we won that game. I mean, yeah, but like, holy crap, we actually did it. I'd love to hear from you. 734-273-9224. But we're only days away from this damn season beginning. Sorry for my language, but we are so freaking excited over here at Y11 Studios. That's what I'm renaming my townhouse without my wife's consent. Sorry about that if you're listening in, babe. But here at Y11 Studios, this is an excited house, or at least an excited office for football season, which begins in, I only need one hand now. I used to have to borrow like my neighbor's fingers and toes and like count off and like, just like tape over their fingers and toes about like which ones were already counted off, so like we could say, okay, we're this much closer to football season. Okay, now that we're 10 days closer, bye neighbor, we're closer to football season. And now we're only one handful of days away from it happening. Predictions, picks, projections, all that stuff, man. It's so fun to do. And you know what, as much as I dial in and get up for them and like get really excited and read too much into them, and then I say like, these aren't important, but I love reading them, and I just have this love-hate relationship for that content. As someone who also produces those, I can now say, burn it all. Who needs it? Now we have actual football season to deal with. What are you going to get out of Ypsi11.com? That is what you're probably wondering right now. Podcast, newsletter posts, bang, bang, boom. But how much of what? So out of this voice, I'm going to try to keep up with my Monday pace. Do that. I like doing it. I like it doesn't matter if Eastern's going to be on a short week. It doesn't matter if Eastern's going to be playing midweek action. If they play midweek action at midnight. Oh my God. Pack those kids an apple to bring to class, I tell you. But Mondays, we're going to have uploads of this podcast here. I'm also going to pick up the pace. Game days. Game day turnaround, save for the Arizona State game, because I'll be podcasting at like 3 a.m. if that's the case, local. TBD on that front. Sorry if it's a Sunday upload there. Sorry in advance. But Mondays, game days, at least twice a week. That's what I'm aiming for on the podcast side of things, to keep you entertained for football season. We'll kind of preview and kind of just generally talk about the game on Mondays. And then game days, of course, we got to talk about what we just saw. Good, bad, ugly, beautiful. Written content, Ypsi11.com. Previews are going to be going up right now. So Monday was the press conference. Depth charts come out. Publish updates on that. Tuesdays. My plan was to do it, double up on Mondays, but like it ended up being tripling up. So I'm just kind of balancing things out with previews on Tuesday, at least for now. Once the midweek rolls around, who knows what's going to happen with that. But right now, podcast on Monday, depth chart on Monday, previews on Tuesday, and then on game days, we're going to have open chats where we just have, essentially, Substack calls them threads. I'm going to just title it open thread, or open chat rather. I can't even get it right. Open chat will be on game days, maybe Saturdays too when we play on only Fridays, who's to say. And then, of course, the recaps and box scores, those will all be written about and talked about in written format. And when I have room for everything else to write about, kind of talking about what's going on at that position group, what's wrong over here. There's an injury. What's the game plan after that? Hey, somebody lied about their beard. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up right now. Or am I? That could all fill in the cracks in between. But you should know that, hey, general discussion, previews, Monday, game day discussions on game days through the podcast. Newsletter, previews, recaps, box scores, and open chats. You should really expect that stuff out of the newsletter. I have a lot of plans and I have a lot of things I want to do and try out, but I'm not there to really just like publicize it and say I'm going to do this and then just like shortchange you later and be like, I couldn't keep up with it. I'm so sorry. I put too much on my plate. That's a lot of mashed potatoes. As much as I love mashed potatoes, I can't just keep carbo loading like that. But anyways, those are the plans for the newsletter and the podcast. Again, follow along where and when you can. I'm trying to build this thing up. And yeah, just be on the lookout for any changes on just anything I'm doing there. But week one, we're almost here. Before we talk about EKU, as much as you want to hear about EKU, let's look at a couple things. I just want to open with a quick S&P Plus look at Eastern Michigan. If you're not familiar with SP Plus, it's not, and no ranking is like the Bible of like the end all be all, but SP Plus does a great job of telling you what a team is all about by measuring these teams in 4 advanced ways, crunching it all together in a formula, and then just like regurgitating it out in a listicle format. It's looking at tempo, it's looking at production, it's looking at efficiency, it's looking at, how sustainable are you, how talented are you, it's looking at recruiting rankings, blah, 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 blah. It's not looking at the human AP top 25. It's not looking at any of that stuff. It's really looking at the production and the productivity on the field and how that all can be just spat out through this computer ranking. How it's looking right, I take the Bill James approach, the old baseball writer who turned kook. 80% of the right, if you're trying out a new stat, it should look right 80% of the time. Top 5 in SP Plus for the preseason is Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and then Clemson. I don't totally agree with Clemson, but you know what? It still kind of looks, and it makes sense generally. So, I'd say it passes the 80% snuff test, and we're just going to move on from here. Eastern Michigan, where are you at on this list? I just had to scroll a whole bunch. 98th overall. You're just under Western Michigan. That doesn't make any sense. Just kidding. 98th overall in SP+. It's got the 81st ranked offense and 113th ranked defense. There's a lot of new changes on defense that, you could see how it could improve from here. But what is SP Plus supposed to do with, a guy who was looking at linebacker like Chase Kline, Joe Sparacio? How is Eastern Michigan's defensive rating supposed to project it to be any better than that, right? It doesn't know a lot about the newcomers. It doesn't know a lot about, the JUCO guys that are coming into the system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Projected win total for Eastern Michigan by SP Plus, it's averaging 6.2 wins for the year and 4.0 wins in MAC play, which is good to see. Eastern's projected to be a bowl team that's at least 500 in MAC play. That's a good year. I'll take it. That's essentially the bare minimum of what I want Eastern to be year in and year out. Is that not? Raise your hand if you have said that. I raised my hand. I'm sorry. I just realized you didn't see that. At the press conference today, the first press conference for the season, Creighton talked about, generally the team, talked about Coach Wells on the other side. Unfortunately, he won't be able to make it to the game. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But he also mentioned the captains. Let's start with the captains, and we'll just kind of talk about the team, and we're going to go from there. The 4 captains, there were 2 that were named, in the spring, and then there were 2 that were named during camp. The 2 that were named in the spring, 1 offense, 1 defense, Brian Dooley, offensive lineman, and Jose Ramirez, defensive end. You've heard so much from Jose Ramirez, but Brian Dooley, you probably haven't heard too much of because he's a right tackle. You don't really listen to right tackles too much. And usually when people talk about who's good at the offensive line, who's the number 1 offensive lineman, people are going to look at the left tackle, right? But I'm going to ask you to look at the right tackle, Brian Dooley. Brian Dooley, graduate student, 36 games played, 34 games started. Talented kid, and there's a lot of potential with him. A lot of people like him, and he does a lot of homework to, improve his game. Here's what he said. Like I was saying earlier to your coach, you guys have a whole bunch of starters returning back, and, with your front 5, you have 140 some starts returning. Why is that important to you guys heading into week 1 and playing out this season?
I think it's important just because, the game experience is something that not a lot of people have because everyone would say, we practice a lot, you practice a lot. But my thing is, if you don't you need to have game reps to really feel that experience. Going up against your guys from winter and then, fall camp and all that, you're going up against the same guys all the time. So once you get those game reps, I think it's awesome because it's someone new. You can actually use your technique, your violent stuff on somebody else. So I think it's a great thing. Like you said, the experience that we have throughout the whole offensive line is it's awesome. We know how to play.
And Coach was also saying that you also give yourself some off-field reps, just studying up with Coach Coughlin and just going through all the study habits. I was wondering if you could just expand a little bit more on like your love for football and like how you approach studying the game as aggressively as you do.
Yeah, like you said, I love the game. I want to make it at the next level. I reached out to Andrew Wiley a lot. He was one of our tackles here. I reached out to TJ Lang. I keep in contact with Max Crosby still on the Raiders. And then I watched we can watch film on the O-line, but a lot of guys who came out with O-line masterminds with like Lane Johnson and some of them. And I watched a lot of their videos. My biggest thing is hopefully get invited to one of those. So I got this year, next year, so hopefully get invited to that. But I want to take like other people's ideas and techniques and try to put it in my toolbox and then kind of tweak it as much as I could, like as much as I can. So I think that helps my game a lot.
Have you been not to like the study habits to get you to the next level to play in the NFL? Has this been like something that like has been starting like during your development here, or has this like always been like ever since high school? No, I've been wanting to make the NFL.
Kind of ever since high school. I had a lot of guys that helped me throughout my process going here. I got a lot of guys on their teams that said I can make it, so they've helped me along the way. And that's our studies from high school into college. We all still keep in contact and we all share the same stuff. So.
And last question, for this offense as a whole, what do you think your guys' best chance at making the MAC championship? What does it look like offensively for you guys to be a MAC championship level offense?
I think it's really, really high. Coach Creighton holds us to high expectations, and like you said, being named as captain, same as Taylor, two strong offensive guys. I think if guys really, listen to us and take our coaches seriously and us seriously and what we can give to them, I think it's really good that we can make a role there. So.
And two new guys were named captains too. Offensively, the quarterback Taylor Powell and Chase Kline, linebacker who comes in from Michigan State. And Chase Kline, he was around for. Both these guys are actually around for the spring too. But yeah, it's been pretty crazy that, and Creighton kind of pointed this out, that just think about like coming in the spring and in less than a year, and this is a culture that like they're like loving of everybody, but like I feel like because of the camaraderie that these guys already have for each other, it would have been a player that I already knew about in January or in December that would have been named one of the four captains here, or at least these other two of the four. Taylor Powell, Chase Kline, they're the new captains. Chase Kline was in attendance for the presser, so we got to talk to him a little bit.
What is, you got a couple guys behind you, Justin Jefferson, Tariq, Jefferson obviously being younger. What are some things that you, and for as much as you've been able to play, you have a lot of things to share to them. What do you think you've been able to share to them, since you've been here?
I think those guys, especially the ones you listed, were very helpful when I first got here, helping me learn defense, helping me learn how they talk, how they move, and stuff like that. And then even the day-to-day stuff. When I first got here, there was breakfast check, and I didn't know what to do. So I called Coach, and he said, "Here, talk to Justin." Justin picked me up, took me to breakfast check. So on the football side, they've been very helpful, but also on the other side of just acclimating to Eastern Michigan, they really helped me a lot.
What do you think, like, your biggest shock to, like, moving to Ypsilanti and all this has been to you?
All the Michigan banners in the stores from Lansing. So there's a little rivalry there, and it's a little different out here. But that's probably the biggest thing. I'm still in the green and white. I bleed green, so it's been a good acclimation.
Maybe I already know the answer to this, but any goals for yourself this year? Obviously, you want to win the MAC this year, of course.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
What kind of goals?
My goal is winning the MAC, helping this team win the MAC in any way possible that I can. That's number one. But what Coach talks about is taking a 1-0 approach. So my goal right now is beating Eastern Kentucky, and that's what I'm focused on. That'll help us get to the MAC championship.
Let's take a look at the depth chart really quickly. Just going down the line from offense to defense and into special teams, which quarterback, of course, you knew Taylor Powell was going to start, and you knew Austin Smith was going to be the quarterback too. I'm interested to see how much Austin Smith plays. I'm interested to see in what situations they do that. I don't think they'll lean on him too much, but Powell, they love him a lot. Obviously, Creighton wanted to spin the wheels again about saying that he, completed 81% of his spring passes, and I think you're probably going to hear it later, but I think he said in camp he was closer to 76%, which definitely makes a little bit more sense. It'll be exciting to see how much things work here. At receiver, the three starters listed at least are the ones that were the ones listed in preseason and the ones that you expected to see at this point. Tanner Canoe, Dylan Drummond, Hassan Badoon. A lot of people are expecting a number change to happen by number 4. That's, because that's just the hive mind of the Eastern Michigan football fan community is that, Badoon is the most loved guy. He's been the most charismatic. He was at Mac Media Day, so he's, definitely had more of a popularity since then too, but he was already a really popular guy online and with the kids and with adults. He's generally just a guy that everybody really wants to root for. And people are on watch to see if and when EMU is going to announce, and they're probably going to do it while I record this podcast, damn it, but who's going to wear number 2 this year? We don't know yet. I didn't ask. I figured, that'll happen when that happens. But Hassan Badoon is certainly one that a lot of the EMU fans are looking to because he's broken records or he's gotten into the 1,000-yard club, something that hasn't been done in a very, very long time. He's super, super deserving of it on and off the field. Hopefully sometime this week we hear the good news that Badoon, it gets a number change again. If you've listened to the Call to Action podcast, he actually talked about his number choice too. I know I shared Ramirez's last week or the week before or something like that about how he chose number 4, which is something that he's going to wear. If you saw today's tweet that Eastern put out about counting down the season, had Dennis Smith yesterday for 5 because he wears number 5, and today was number 4. Who's the most popular number 4 on the team? That's right, it's defensive end Jose Ramirez. They didn't put Hassan Badoon on there, so maybe when there's 2 days left, who knows. But yeah, that'll be exciting to see if and when that happens. But Badoon, the story that he shared, and I'll hurry this up, I promise. Badoon, he did wear number 24 in high school because he was a big Champ Bailey fan, and they ripped that jersey because he got injured or something like that. They ripped that jersey open, and then they could never get that back together. So then, he was just number 4, and then walked on, wore 44 or something like that at first, and then he wore 16 by the time we got to see his breakout performance in the Quick Lane Bowl. Obviously, he changed his number again to number 4 in 2020 and has been that since. So it would be fun to see, just the way his football number life kind of happened to where he goes from 24, cut that out, to just 4, then 44. What's 4 times 4? 16, and then back to 4. And then if it ends up with number 2, that'd be kind of cool. Also, generally, it's just a great honor because of what number 2 represents for the program. That goes without saying, but I feel like it should be said at this point. Number 2 means a lot to the program, and I feel like for the feel-good reasons of it, Badoon, someone who I shouldn't be speaking like this, but someone that we trust is just generally a good person and will be an awesome guy when he graduates and represents Eastern Michigan and, himself and his family after graduation. It'll mean a lot to him because of what it just represents just generally. But yeah, backups at receiver, Zach Westmoreland, Darius Lassiter, incoming JUCO guy behind Dylan Drummond, and Ishawn Stewart. Darius Lassiter, this is his first time cracking the 2 deep out of the preseason depth chart, so post-spring, pre-camp, during summer. Dennis Smith was listed as Dylan Drummond's backup receiver there. Tight ends hasn't changed, though I still like Aaron Jackson the most. Tight end number 1, Gunnar Oaks. Tight end number 2, Andres Pasky. And the offensive line hasn't changed at all. Marcellus Johnson, Sidney Sau, Richard Bates, Alex Howie, and Brian Dooley from left to right are your starters. There's over like 140 starts on this offensive line, which is great to see. And then at running back, Samson Evans is the number 1. Incoming transfer, Jalen Jackson, much smaller, different build than the rest of them, because the other running backs, we have Evans, Darius Boone at number 3, Bryson Moss as the number 4. They're all over 200 pounds or slightly over. Jalen Jackson's much smaller build at 5'8", 165, has a little bit of a different game to him. Can play some special teams too, so we'll see him out there. He's listed as the kick returner number 1. On defense, Grant Truman is the one I'm going to highlight right now because it looks like he's going to be making his first start finally for Eastern Michigan. Played, I think it's like a total of like 46 career games he's played. I have it written down somewhere, but I'm not looking at it. He's played 22 games so far since he transferred from the JUCO ranks a number of years ago. Played 22 games so far for Eastern Michigan. Now it looks like he's listed as the number 1 defensive end, opposite of Jose Ramirez. So it'll be good to see him finally get his first start over there. Grant Truman backed up by Micah Coleman, who was the number 1 at end entering camp. Jordan Crawford, Alex Merritt, they're going to eat up the middle, backed up by Dexter Manier, Peyton Price, respectively. At bull, Jose Ramirez, number 4. Of course, you know him. He's going to be the starter out there, of course. And behind him is going to be Carter Evans. That's a great choice. Carter Evans is really, really good. I really love the potential of this kid. We've talked about him before on this podcast, too. And you can go back and listen to his brother, Samson Evans, the running back, talk about his younger brothers come up in development. At linebacker, we have the 2 incoming transfers, Chase Kline from Michigan State, Joe Sparacio, Boston College. And they're backed up by Justin Jefferson and Tariq Spates, respectively. Jefferson's really solid. I like Jefferson a lot. He's gonna be really good. Kempton Shine, Mark Lee Jr. Last year, they were both battling for starting playing time at one corner spot, while the other one was, oh my God, I'm blanking on who locked on the other one. Jarrett Paul, who transferred in from Rutgers and was already out at Kansas, I believe. But they are both the starting corners. They're backed up by Corey Hernandez, who's returning from injury, and Joshua Scott from the junior college ranks. Really talented guy, and they have guys behind those guys too. So cornerback is actually going to be pretty loaded. So is safety. TJ Peavy, Russ Vaden, Blake Bogan. They are your starting dog safety, free safety, rover safety, respectively. Their backups are Robert Daniel, David Carter, and Quantavious Scandrett. And Quantavious Scandrett, that's also in place for Cam Smith, because that is those are 2 guys that are just kind of like paired together when it comes to younger, newer signee safeties that kind of joined the team over like the 2020 and 2021 signing class. It was over the 2020 and 2021 signing classes that those 2 were joined. So they're both having a good spring. Benson, I asked about. He's not hurt. He's just not on the 2 deep, but we'll see him soon as well. He was a former All-Patriot League safety for Bucknell. Special teams, we pretty much know the returners. Jalen Jackson, Hassan Badoon, Dylan Drummond, Tanner Canoe. Those are kind of the standout guys. For kicker and punter, they've liked Jose Gomez a lot to do kicking. He's the only one that's been around for more than a few months. They just recently brought in Brady Pohl before camp. They brought in Brady Pohl, who transferred in from Oklahoma State. I don't know if they're going to have a place kicker named just yet. I think they're going to give it some more time, but I don't know. I just don't know like what the longer term answer is going to be. I feel like they just want to see Brady like kick more and longer and like see what he looks like once the weather starts to suck. And at punter, they knew that Jake Julian was going to be graduated by now, so they have some competition. They have about 4 guys that they like right now, so we'll see how this kind of plays out. Mitch Tomasic, Blake Oxendorf, those are 2 guys that competing for the punter race right now. The other guys Adam Hess and Ryan Kingston, they're pretty good too. All right, Eastern Kentucky. Now that we're about 30 minutes into this thing, you should know a few things. Number one, if a win here would be Eastern Michigan's first win over Eastern Kentucky ever. And no, they don't play every year. They haven't played since 1971, but they've played 4 times since. They've played 4 times in their history. 1948, Eastern Kentucky beat Eastern Michigan 20-0. It was Reinerson's last season as the coach. 49, very next year, Eastern Kentucky won 27-6. But both of those games were before integration, so we can just totally pretend those games never happened. 1970, Eastern Michigan lost 21-10. And then 71, the Pioneer Bowl year, 0-0 tie. Hell yeah, love that. Eastern Kentucky is without its third-year head coach, Walt Wells. Walt Wells is a Tennessee guy who has been to Eastern Kentucky 1, 2, 3 times, I believe. I believe he's been an assistant coach there. Not once, but twice. He was twice an assistant coach at Eastern Kentucky before he was named the head coach in 2019, right before the you-know-what happened. So now that he's got his first real full calendar year to actually get into this kind of year, because you're kind of dealing with, after you have a spring season, then you kind of deal with everything that, now we got to act like a football team after spring season and just kind of deal with all the player movements and everything there. Now that, we're in 2022, we're really outside of the you-know-what year, this would have been a great time for Walt Wells to really do some damage, with a team that was already plucky and did some good things last year too. It would have been great to see what this team at its full capacity could look like against Eastern Michigan. This is a total sickos thing, but it's still a really good football game that should be had. It sucks that they're without Walt Wells because he seems like the kind of coach that you want to root for, especially for this team with its potential. Who knows if Eastern Kentucky ever wants to move up to the MAC and what that could look like. If that were ever in the cards, this is a game that Eastern Kentucky wants to win. And Eastern Michigan, it should go without saying, yeah, they want to beat the FCS school. Yeah, it should be win. But Eastern Kentucky is no joke, right? Eastern Kentucky is a very respected program. Eastern Kentucky is a team that you recruit against. So you need this win to solidify you in a number of ways. And plus, you never want to lose Eastern Kentucky. Whether they're going to be a MAC school or not, you don't want to lose this game. You finally want to get into the win column here. So it'd be really risky if Eastern ended up losing this game, of course, because you don't want to be 0-4-1 because, right now I'm sure people are just now finding out that Eastern has never beaten Eastern Kentucky. But after a potential loss, then people will be like, oh my God, I never realized Eastern was 0-4 against them. That'd be really bad. Wow. So definitely got to get that first one. And who knows, maybe years to come, schedule them in the future. Join the MAC, who knows. Creighton he opened up his the press conference today with a statement on Wells, who the school announced that he had a quote-unquote cardiac episode yesterday being Sunday. So his timeline right now, as far as I know, is questionable.
Yesterday afternoon, sitting in an offensive staff meeting, got word that Coach Wells, had a medical episode and found out a little bit more since that time. And I don't know him personally. Some of our guys on our staff have met him and know him to some degree, and just want to genuinely say that hope that he is going to have a speedy and a full recovery. Obviously thinking about their program, been thinking about their program for a long time, but there's a lot of things that are bigger than football. So hope to see him here on Friday evening if at all possible.
Yeah, anytime, You just never want to hear that. You never want to see a player get hit in the play and all that stuff, and you never want to hear about anybody like just having a bad time like that. You never want to hear about poor health out of anybody. You generally just don't, right? Especially like when you're this connected to the sport too, like people that like are in the same space as you. It just you kind of feel for them a little bit more, and me too. And I probably will never even visit that campus. I probably just won't. But I will no reason. I probably will never have a reason to meet Coach Waltwells, but still my heart goes out to him. I know Eastern Michigan from their perspective, after just unexpectedly losing a coach at the age of 54. I don't know what age Walt Wells is right now. I was looking for that earlier, but I'm sure like. He's like in similar age to not just Coach Reed, but everybody else, around the EMU coaching staff too. I'm sure they're really, not that they ever like needed somebody that they loved to like die before they felt compassion for anybody else. I'm not saying that's the deal with them, because Eastern's more grown up than that. But still, that's got to add some more perspective for them to be like, oh my God, we just went through this. We are really, really hoping for the best for you guys. Anyways, to talk about his own team and himself as a coach, to close on, we have 3 more sound bites to play for you. Let's talk about the offense. I asked about 2 things. I asked about the offensive line and, having a bunch of guys that come back with a whole bunch of experience. We did hear from Dooley, but what about City Sal? What about Marcellus Johnson? Because between those two on the left side, there's 70-plus starts between them. So with them, Jalen Jackson's coming in looking good. Hey, Coach, what are your thoughts on them?
More offensively, you guys on the offensive line, there's so much experience on there, like graduate students, seniors, all the way down. How important is it to have a lot of experience on the front lines like that?
Well, experience is good no matter what, but just because you have a guy coming back doesn't mean he's a good football player. Might be the best that you have. That's not the case with us on our offensive line. We have really good football players who play a lot of football, who are seasoned veterans. I think that it starts there with our offensive line for our offense, and it starts on the O&D line with our whole football team. We've got a really, really good first group, of offensive line.
Running back Jalen Jackson, he's already slotted as an RB2 on your guys' depth chart, a leading kick returner. Obviously, this is his first time with you guys because he just transferred from Lamar. But what's it been like having a guy like that who can, play in 2 phases of the football field? What's it like having a guy like him on the field?
Yeah, he's had a really good camp, good fit in our program. He gives us just something different than what we have with most of the other guys. Sebastian Toland is actually similar, but hasn't played for us, but has really had a great spring in camp, and so his name could be called. But Sampson and Boone and Bryson, that group of guys, they've got the ability to run through you. Where Jalen is a little bit like a Juwan Hamilton, and just the foot in the ground, quickness and the acceleration. And so it's a really good change up, from the other group of backs that we have. And then you mentioned the special teams. He's not the only one that's going to be doing 2 phases, but we really think that he's going to help us there as well.
Over on defense, Grant Truman, like I said earlier, looks like he's going to get his first start. I'm excited for the guy. He's always worked hard. He's been excited to, he's been an excited player to watch. Just the way he gets into things and the way like guys rally around him. Of course, Creighton feels the same. Actually, I'll let him. Yeah, you take over, Coach. I'm done with this microphone.
Grant Truman looks like he's finally going to get his first nod to start after 40+ games between JUCO and Eastern. What kind of spring, and I mean, you've seen him for 3 years. What's it been like having him around and finally get to this part where he's finally going to start?
Yeah, I'll tell you, every time that he got an opportunity, last year he came in, he made big plays. Getting sacks, pressures, and the sideline would erupt, not because it was someone that was a young guy
Right.
that was getting their first chance, but it's just a guy that has just stayed with it, worked so hard, and, just needed some opportunities. And so here he is, as a starting defensive end for us. Another player that is just really smart. As a play caller, going against our defense in all camp, there's certain plays where I literally look out there and see, okay, who's that defensive end, or who's that middle linebacker, or who's the field corner, because I know that, we're not gonna get them, or that we have a chance to get, so-and-so. And Grant's one of those guys, if I'm trying to do anything deceptive, it's gonna be really hard, because he's really smart.
I noticed Scandrick Q. He popped into the 2 deep too. What kind of spring has he had? And I noticed Brandon Benson, who we talked about before, he's not listed here. Is he missing? Is he hurt or something? Is
No.
Q just stepping up?
Yeah, no, he's good. And I would say with both Q and Cam, I think anybody on our team, and we would have said this, a year ago, two young safeties who have all potential in the world. And we're pretty loaded at safety in terms of depth, and 60-year seniors and guys who played a lot of football. But both Cam and Q are going to be factors for us this year and for a long time to come. Both of those guys just continue to get better and better, have good springs and have good cams.
And to end this, we're going to play one more sound clip. The final 2 questions I asked him were on him, specifically him, Creighton, Chris. How does he feel about coaching right now? And that's a loaded question. There's a lot that I would love to just really get at with that and do it outside of the press conference of week 1. But had my coffee. I don't know if he's a coffee drinker. Had my coffee, had my water, had my whatever. Tea, green tea, I don't know. Monster Energy drink. Year 9 of coach. Been doing this for a long time. How am I feeling? How am me, Chris Creighton? How am I feeling? Not just a coach, but a coach at Eastern Michigan and a coach of college football in its current state of college football. I was trying to ask that. Of course, I could only ask him in in so few words and get such a little answer. We did the best with what we could. But after that big statement, after that big question, I kind of asked an even bigger question, a more important question. The question that you, hanging on for 40-plus minutes on this podcast, which I thank you for, and I appreciate that you've already subscribed by now, because why else would you listen to 40 minutes of an Eastern Michigan football side podcast? What is the one question that is actually on your mind right now? Don't worry. We're not going to say it right here. I asked, and he answered. You're welcome.
Last 2 questions for me and on you. This is your 9th year here. A lot of changes have happened in Eastern Michigan football and for college football as a whole. For you to enter this year, how are you feeling about your job and just everything that you have to deal with on a day-to-day?
I love my job. I love it. I love it because of the people that I'm with. I love this building and all of those things, but that's not what I really love. I love the people. I love our staff. I love every guy on our team. The support staff. That people believe in what we're doing, why we're doing it, and they believe that that we're not even close to becoming what we're capable of becoming, and being around good people who make you feel that you're a part of something bigger than yourself, and that you're going somewhere, that you're going after something with purpose. I absolutely love my job and the people that I work with.
And last question as promised. I see today you're clean shaven. What's your game plan this season for the beard, if at all?
Well, unfortunately, I could grow a full beard by Friday, and so you just have to wait and see. Brian Dooley, after I had shaved last year, was sitting in Coach Kaufman's office, and my beard came up, and he looked at me and he said, "I hated your beard." And I thought that was a little strong. So I haven't had a beard since.